Welcome to this week's Invisible Not Broken, and I'm finally back with Kyros.
I know. I've been so busy and then kind of hither and yon around the landscape and
Seriously, we've both been running around, and it's nice to finally have my co-host back for a minute before you run away again. I scream. I'll do the guilt later.
Yeah.
So we are here to talk about a panel that we were both really excited about. Because we've both been dealing with a lot of this emotion.
Yeah.
And any of you who are sick know it well.
Fear.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I've been kind of missing is I've had some health problems. I had phantom smells. I had olfactory hallucinations where all I could smell for 2.5 weeks was car exhaust. And it was disturbing. And I'd gone through everything to check all my sinus stuff to make sure there wasn't something wrong with my sinuses or something going on in my sinuses. So I was down to knowing that it was something wrong inside my brain. And I was really stressing out about it, and I was kind of not really feeling social. But thankfully I've gotten results since, we planned on doing this earlier before I got the results. So I was really kind of right in the heart of the fear at that point in time.
And being the sensitive soul I was, I totally pushed for it because it got to be the most authentic.
So the things that it could be, if it's not something in your sinuses, is micro seizures inside your brain, specifically in the olfactory center. So the idea of going on seizure medications for the rest of my life wasn't something I was thrilled with. It could be a brain tumor, or either early onset Alzheimer's or early onset Parkinson's. And all of those sounded like really horrible things that I did not want to think about. So I've had an EEG, I've had an EK or a MRI of my brain. No brain tumor. They can't detect anything. So right now we're treating it as if it is micro seizures, and hoping that it's not, early onset Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. We'll see if I develop any of the other symptoms. So yeah, I'm still dealing with fear.
And I think, that's fair. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I was really good and didn't make any brain jokes. Not one.
Yet by saying that. Anyway, on to our topic. So the things before you have an invisible illness, some kind of disability, you worry about losing your job, you worry about growing old, things like getting in a car accident, stuff like that. But once you actually get one of these little genetic lotteries or accident lotteries that give you one of these chronic diseases, you start worrying about you're losing your job. Yes, but you're more afraid of losing your job because you're going to lose your health insurance. Here in the good old USA, our jobs are our health insurance. Without the job, you have
some of our jobs. There are plenty of jobs that don't even provide the health insurance, or that you have to pay for the health insurance and the health. Like my sister's going to be paying an obscene amount of money, like the amount of money you'd pay for an apartment.
Eek.
And she works full time. So it's that's not even a guarantee. But if you do have health insurance through your job, that's almost like a win, and you are terrified to lose that.
Yeah, I mean, I've known many people in the past that hated their job and they wanted to change jobs, but they were so worried that what they had might be considered a pre-existing condition, and if they go to a new company, are they going to suddenly not be able to get insurance and all kinds of things. So they stayed in jobs they absolutely hated just because I have insurance here that pays for my medical bills, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to risk that.
It's just a moment of what we gained with the ACA, or what so many try to call Obamacare, was that pre-existing conditions, and so many of you wonderful people are not in the United States. And if you're in a socialized country where, you have the basic levels of medical care, congratulations, I'm jealous. But what we had here before Obama, when Obama got the American Care Act through, was
Affordable Care Act.
Affordable Care Act, thank you. Was the pre-existing conditions clause that many insurance companies would enact, and even enact after the fact. So if you want true fear, let me help you, because you could actually even have insurance, and then after you've gone to the hospital, if the insurance deems that you had a pre-existing condition before they signed you up, they could not just cancel your health care, because that was one thing, but they would then bill you for everything that you had gone through before.
Oh, I've never heard of that. That one scares me.
That was terrifying to me, because it even, one of the things that it really affected was people in domestic violence situations, which, again, let's just talk about sheer fear. but they would have domestic violence victims as a pre-existing condition. Acne could be a pre-existing condition.
Right.
As far as like the things that I would have been focused on, because I have a whole bunch of issues that surround reproductive problems. Yeah, I'm trying to say this the right way. But all of those were considered pre-existing conditions. So it was crazy, the things that you could just go in for an appendicitis and then all of a sudden your healthcare is gone and you are now charged for everything before that.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's terrifying.
Just going to the hospital when you have a chronic, and like just like leaving all of the regular fears alone, and just going with what like anyone who's listening to this, like if you have a chronic illness or not, you all know that going to the hospital is scary in America because you have no idea what the bill is going to be. There's no concept of what that's going to be. Also, if you have insurance, you don't know what the insurance will cover.
Yeah,
the insurance can just randomly decide that scan, just because, and this was a true case, I posted it up on our Twitter, mostly because it was the same thing that happened to me years ago, was that a woman had pain on her side that her appendix was on. Mm-hmm. She had a fever, and it was blinding levels of pain. She had been a nursing student. She was rushed to the hospital thinking appendicitis. Absolutely. All this is lining up. Had the scan. And it was an ovarian cyst that burst, which any of you listening who know what this feels like, you hear me when I say it was blinding levels of pain and you pass out. Anyway, so because it wasn't appendicitis, they charged her the full amount for that scan. How I know that is absolutely true is I had the same thing happen to me. I was charged $16,000 because they did a scan of my side. It ended up being an ovarian cyst. Because I, as a layperson, could not diagnose this by myself while I was in agony, they charged me $16,000.
Wow.
So because I'm a big fan of don't hand over a whole bunch of like bad and negative and freak out and nothing good, let me explain something really fast, because this is how you can get around this stuff. Is almost every hospital billing center is set up to negotiate massively. You just need to keep coming back to them and work on it, and there are ways to get your bill down. I got mine from $16,000 down to $300.
Nice.
So just letting you all know, there are a lot of different ways that you can work on your bill. It's bad and it should never happen. The system should not be this way. But I'll go doom and gloom and then a little sunshine.
So back to I'm going to keep trying to push us back to this.
I stayed on. Look at this. I was even on the right section of this.
I know you are. I'm just trying to keep us and going on to the next thing, because I've also gotten off on tangents this time. One of the things we want to definitely
say. Him being nice to me. Wasn't that cute?
Hey, occasionally I have to. One of the things I want to definitely insert into this fear conversation is the internet is a horrible place to look up your symptoms. Horrible. Self-diagnosis can lead you down scary roads. Don't do it.
As his friend, listening to him while he was trying to self-diagnose this olfactory thing, it was very, I felt bad.
Hey, I was really good. I stayed on like the Mayo Clinic and stuff like that. I stayed on reputable sites. And
very proud of you for staying away from WebMD. That's clever. Because
I know better.
I mean, it's predictable if nothing else. You go on there and it is going to be
you're going to die.
You're going to die. I mean, like, it is the most predictable thing when you start typing in symptoms.
And back to these fears you have. You get into that. What I was meaning by don't look up your symptoms is you can get caught in this loop of, oh my God, I'm going to die. I've got this, I've got that, I've got this, because all your symptoms are matching up, because some symptoms cross a lot of boundaries. You can also be really worried about losing your friends because you can't participate in social events. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Monica?
You mean the mass exodus of when I got sick and had to shut down my business? Yes, that was about 3/4 of my social circle gone. By the way, all of you who stayed, thank you. I love you. And all those of you who felt like you had to go, I understand. I get it. And I still love you. But no, that was being chronically ill is isolating. There's no other words around what this is like. It is incredibly lonely. Some of you have been incredibly kind to email me at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and yes, I was awake, to tell me that this helps you guys on those like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning loneliness. Mm-hmm. And we are so glad we are here for you. You guys do keep us recording this. Even when I start to feel like I'm not able to keep doing this, I get those emails. Like, I hear you. I'm scared too. I'm lonely too. Losing friends is such a huge thing. And that's one thing. Now, there's a lot of people on my groups that lose family.
Yeah.
And losing friends, that's that is hard. There's no way around it. That is incredibly difficult to handle, the isolation and the rejection. To handle that from spouses or children or siblings or parents, or to have what was supposed to be your support network crumble or be afraid of that crumbling, or the judgment, or, or people feeling like they need to take responsibility for you. There's a lot to unpack to that.
Yeah. And, you're always worried about things like, am I ever going to get better? Am I, going to lose my self-control? Someone else going to have to take care of me where I don't have agency anymore?
Man, speaking as a 40-something-year-old woman who now has her mother driving her around everywhere, and that's not even like the level you're talking about, but just losing that adult autonomy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Oh, so difficult. But when you're, I remember my grandmother got really sick, like losing bladder control and bowel control. Ooh. And having to have strangers come in to help her. And that was probably the most difficult thing for her and for her psychological level. And I know a lot of you are dealing with different things from kidney to colon issues, and the bravery you all have shown and how you handle these things. I'm so impressed. But I think all of us, like, as we're standing on the precipice of a diagnosis, it's a chasm there.
Well, yeah, you're always, human nature, you're always worried about that worst case scenario going on there, and I've got this.
Is that human nature, or is that just us? Are there really positive people out there who go, it's going to be fine?
Yeah, and I, for me, whenever someone go, oh, it's going to be fine, I'm like, yeah, your face says that, but no, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. You can't be in that level of pain and go, it's going to be fine, and not be in your head going, I'm going to die.
See, I'm trying to skim through here to go, are we going to get to this one topic? I'm going to get us off track real quick.
I want to finish at least this first part, then we can jump.
But
okay?
It really had something to do with what you just said.
Fine. Go ahead, jump.
I will just do a headline of it, and we can get to the whole part of it later.
Get it out with it.
No, you were talking about the precipice and the fear, and I was just thinking...
Actually, you were, but...
I swear to everyone, we are not related. We are not brother and sister. He just tries to give me the sibling experience, I think, since I was an only child. He's just really trying to just make sure I have a full-rounded life experience.
I'm just showing you all the love in my heart.
I feel all the love. All right. What I was going to say was that one of the things that if you read our Twitter, or you go Instagram or YouTube, I just had that experience where I was not able to get my pain medication. Mm-hmm. And I had the tiniest baby mouse's hair's breadth of this experience that everyone's talking about in the middle of the country, people who do not have my level of privilege, where those are cut off. Mine wasn't cut off. My prescription was right there from my pain clinic. I am not being decreased. I have the paperwork. I just wasn't able to get it. And I had this moment of thinking, what will my life be like if these pharmacists are holding the gate keys and are refusing me my pain meds? What will my life look like? And I just had this small flash of what everyone else is going through. That was my headline, and we can go in depth later.
Well, and you did do a video, didn't you, of a day without pain meds?
That's our most popular video. Yep, and it's our most popular blog post for the whole year. And so I'm so glad I could make sure I could make something. It's like Neil Gaiman said, make art out of suffering. So
yes.
That was not art by any scale of the imagination, but I just decided that I was going to just give it a try, because there's all of these interesting people in Washington who keep thinking that they know better than the pain doctors, and that...
Yeah, and you want to move up there.
Not that Washington, the other Washington.
Oh, sorry. Well, so I keep reading articles about the state of Washington. The pain clinics are closing, so...
they're closing here, too. I mean, it's everywhere. It's really... Actually, you want to talk about, fear-based decisions, which I think we're going to get to in another few months. Anyone who feels sorry for Kyros, I feel sorry for him, too. But, the decisions that you have to start making from a place of desperation and fear, it's one of the things we're talking about in this family. I wouldn't be me without my painkillers. All of this, any aspect that's pleasant or even funny, that doesn't exist without my opioids. It's not there. I am not me. I am not functional. I am not a good parent. I'm not even, I would even argue, a parent at all. Like I cannot get beyond like the internal screaming. So to have any kind of life where like, if this gets worse, we need to make some really serious, big life decisions here.
Right. And the last two things I had on this first... Before
we
start jumping around again.
Off the rail.
No, it's fine. It's fine. The last two things I had about the things you fear are that if you do go out and do things with friends, you're going to have more pain. But if you stay home, you're right there in that missing out on everything and that, that fear of missing out, FOMO.
Ah, yes. Thank you, Tim Ferriss. He's the one who made that big decision. I think it's a good one. But it's so hard to even make that decision to go out because fear of you're going to go out and what if the worst happens? Like I just had an episode where I was found unconscious in my house. So that was really scary to go out again and go, well, what happens if I'm out and I lose consciousness again? What if I'm out and I have a massive femur dislocation? And that's, nothing compared to the fear that you have when you go out socializing with well, what if dairy ends up in your food?
I mean, you're worried about passing out. I'm worrying about, going into someone's house and destroying their toilet.
Jackson Pollocking the place, yes.
This is like a Jackson Pollock painting.
I mean, well, just to show you how ladylike I was raised, that almost actually sounds more frightening to me than passing out. I had this Victorian ideal of the prettily passing out. I was quite sure. Couch. I was assured by my husband it was not pretty. I was free flow bleeding. It was much more rocky than it was Little Women. It was, yeah. I still have this scar. It's very cute. I want better stories though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that huge fear of what happens, or my dad, and I hope he's okay with me saying this, and if he isn't, I'm so sorry, Dad, you're wonderful. But when he started getting sick, he still wanted some level of autonomy because he's one of the most lively people I know. He loves his bookstores, and he went out using paratransit, which is a thing in California where you can schedule a car to come pick you up and drop you off. This is not Uber, people. This is...
it's a bus.
Yeah, well, it's a bus, and they pick up a whole bunch of people and drop you off. So you schedule the time to drop off and the time to pick up, and there's no changing that.
Right.
And it's very static. So this was years ago, and he ended up out there, and it's right at the beginning of his lack of function. And he ended up getting frozen on a street in Berkeley. And because he looks like the hippie that he is, he was frozen and couldn't move and couldn't speak. And people were just walking by this very, nicely looking older guy who they just kind of figured was a little off, which, Dad, I love you, but it's fair. But he was not able to get help because he couldn't speak. So it's just another thing that frightened him into not going out again and not leaving again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's the fear of seriously, everything in chronic illness is, you do this, it's going to harm you. You do the opposite, it will harm you. Do the middle, it probably won't do, well, it'll probably harm you. Let's be honest. Yeah. So you don't go out. Let's say that you're you know what, everyone love you, but you have to come to me. Mm-hmm. You still might have these issues at home. I have passed out in front of friends. Kyros cannot count how many times I have had to relocate myself during sessions of these. Mm-hmm. He's had to watch me put my shoulder, my rib, my knee, my, well, you weren't there for the tibia, but you got to listen to it on the phone.
Your wrist was the one that disturbed me the most.
Yeah, it was pretty gross. It's still not very pretty. Anyway, so these things happen at home. And then if you decide to isolate yourself, which I hear you, when I go through bouts of depression, good luck finding me. But I have, yeah. Anyway, other people's stories, I will not go into family stuff, but, I get really isolating.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah. Box. I am positive all the time. And if I'm not, you're not going to see. Yeah. It's something I'm working on, I swear. But that does not help my depression. And I can get into some pretty dark forests that I have a hard time coming back from. I just happen to have some really good people who totally ignore me when I tell me to leave me alone and come over and force me back over to the chatty side.
Or say, hey, I'm making dinner, come over.
Yeah, Kyros has done that to me a few times when I've been MIA for a while. I bet she's probably hibernated.
But, talking about all these fears, but sometimes even going to the doctor makes it worse because, you go through more and more fruitless tests, you spend more money, throwing more money after it, trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with you.
Uh-huh.
And, then you got to worry about, medical costs, medical bills.
And then let's go back to the ultimate fear, like that moment that is like the scariest moment like that I've ever had since before like 2 lines on a pregnancy test. Like the moment of like sheer terror is you've been really, really sick. You don't have the diagnosis for it yet. And you're going to get your blood test results. And you're just waiting for them to tell you you're fine. You are the healthiest person ever. There's nothing wrong with you.
That was me at my MRI when I was trying to find out whether I had a brain tumor or not.
I have sat in so many doctors' offices biting my nails down to like bloodlines as like, I'm like, I've been passing out. I have, I don't feel well. I step and I cry. I don't know what's wrong. I can't do this anymore. And they're like, your blood tests are totally normal. You're fine. I don't know what you're just, you know what it is? It's stress, honey. You're just stress. Really? Stress causes these things. So, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It does. I mean, stress causes everything. Didn't you know?
It's right up there with sugar, alcohol, and wheat. Apparently, like if I could just stop eating sourdough bread, I'd be fine.
And even when you talk to the doctor, you're worried that they're not going to believe you, they're going to dismiss you, or if they do give you medication, will this actually work, or will the side effects be worse?
I'm going to go back to the opioids for a second.
I knew you would. I was setting you up for that.
He was. He gave me a nice... Did you see that softball he just lobbed? It was like watching like a person play with their kid. It was like the little Nerf softball over. All right, so here's the thing that all of my friends and I have been talking about who are in chronic pain, who are on opioids. We go to the doctor. We are so fucking terrified of ending up on the list.
Yep.
And the list is the drug seeker list. And you can get on that list for going to different pharmacies, which you have to because most pharmacies are not carrying even the levels of opioids if they're carrying them at all. So you have to go to each pharmacy to find out who has it. That can land you on the list. Going to the hospital because your pain levels have gotten beyond what you can handle will put you on the list, possibly. Again, this is all positions of privilege that I have that I'm afraid. So for people who do not have the same levels that I have, this is so much harder for them. And I can only say from what my personal experience is, which is this is scary for all of us.
Well, like you said, you look like a soccer mom. If somebody else doesn't look like, soccer mom who walks in.
I mean, a soccer mom who has some cool tattoos, let's be real. But yes, I totally look like a soccer mom. And I come from a level of economic privilege. I have family that backs me up, that comes in and explains my whole medical history to people. Like, I'm lucky and I'm having a lot of trouble. This is absolute torture for veterans where the VA hospitals have decided that the CDC's guidelines are law instead of guidelines.
Yeah.
But we're so scared. Like, I was scared to change pain doctors because my pain doctor is lovely and wonderful and he's amazing, but his specialty is spines. That's the only part of my body that's working. Finish, only thing. Knocking on wood, just to, don't take that as a challenge, body. That was not challenge accepted moment.
That's not what I was thinking.
I'm you. But I wanted to see if I could find a different pain clinic doctor who might have had worked with joints, connective. There's no way I was finding one who knew Ehlers-Danlos, but like just someone who knew how to deal with joints and different things like that. But I couldn't switch because switching doctors is another red flag. So sorry, that was my little side of like fear in doctors and medication. But the other medication fears are the may the odds ever be in your favor label, which is this may cause, like, I kid you not, for depression, I got saying this, that may cause suicidal thoughts. I'm like, for depression?
Exactly.
I mean, I guess we're solving something, but it seems a little permanent. Like,
well, I'm depressed and this medicine may make me suicidal. That's not exactly helping the depression.
I mean, I think that's why I came in, right?
Exactly.
Like, so when I come in for a broken arm, you're just going to like, well, I guess you do re-break it sometimes for a broken, bad analogy. I'm sorry, y'all, but I think you know where I was going with that. But like, there's so many ones where it's like,
well, I mean, like I have all the pain I have and I can take opioids too. But with my IBS and everything else, opioids, if I have dairy, where dairy wants to get out of my system right now, and I have opioids which block my system, that means that I turn into the Goodyear blimp and I can't pass the gas, I can't do anything. And I have actually been in so much pain I couldn't get, I'm not usually the I can't get out of bed pain. I could not get out of bed for 3 days. After 2 days, I was on Vicodin for 2 days, and then I accidentally got dairy at the hospital, because when I had a surgery.
Tell me that the hospital thing is in here, like the fear of what will happen to you in the hospital, losing autonomy. Tell me that's in here, right?
No, it's actually not.
Okay, well, we have to get back to that.
Go ahead, cover it now. You're on it.
No,
now.
You were doing the good one. Like that was good story.
So yeah, I mean, you got to worry about side effects because sometimes the side effects of the drug are, potentially worse than what you're going in to be seen for.
And here's the other one. As we're getting more and more medications and interesting compounds, how is it going to react with the other meds you're on? Because a lot of the time they don't know. And being male, biologically male, you do have a huge up on, we're just talking biology here, on someone who's biologically female who's still going through cycles, is that depending on where you are in your cycle, you can absolutely react to different medicines in different ways. Mm-hmm. It's very frustrating. I never know what I'm going to get when I open up pill bottles and I start and it's like, well, which ones do you take? And taking them together can really drastically, as I learned the other night, really change things. And not for the better. Well, I hate being high. I hate it so much. I am a control freak to the nth degree. I know. Yes, I know. And my children, if they ever hear this, are going to be laughing on the floor. Yes, I'm a total control freak. I hate being drunk. I hate being high. And that was sheer terror, because I didn't do drugs at all in high school. Once accidentally in college, I really just didn't have the experience, and I was so scared. Mm-hmm. It is not something I handle well, being out of control.
That makes two of us.
Yeah. So do we get to cover the thing that we forgot to write in here that I want to definitely have in here? Go
ahead. Because we're ready to break between sections. So
seriously, feel bad for this poor man. These are works of art. They are beautiful. They are organized. They are stunning, and I completely ignore them. I'm
used to it at this point.
So I refuse to go to the hospital, even when I really should be in the hospital. And the reason is I hate to lose control. Mm-hmm. And I know that's kind of like a punchline here, but I think that a lot of you might actually understand what I'm saying. When you go into a hospital, you lose control of everything. You're bullied into things if they don't just outright do it. You're trusting medical students who have just graduated.
I have to say that as a larger man, I don't have them bully me as often, because I think I intimidate people because I'm such a big guy.
Yeah, I cannot intimidate even my pug. I am negative. If you're going to do a dice roll for my character sheet, someone would just remove the dice and just be like, yeah, no, there's, that fluffy gerbil over there? Yeah, it laughed at you.
The last time I was in the hospital for something, when I actually thought I was having a heart attack, because I was having arm pain and tightness in the chest, and I was having trouble breathing. And it's all at once. I'm like, oh, okay. No, I was having a panic attack. But anyway, I was in the hospital, and they kept, trying to push me into things. I'm like, no, if I just want to check this. I just want to check this. I just want to check this. We don't need anything else. Just check this. Thank you.
So if you ever think that I am not passive, you've never seen me with a doctor.
Oh, what?
There's this moment when I see a white coat and a stethoscope that my heart rate drops down to nothing, and I just get scared, and I lose all ability to say what I need or want. It's awful. I don't know how to solve that.
Well, now I know how to get what I want when we're working.
Oh God!
Just come over a white lab coat and a stethoscope. I actually have the stethoscope. I can just get a white lab coat.
There are so many jokes I can make right now, and I'm going to be so good, because I'd like to put this up on YouTube, and we all know how much YouTube loves jokes like that. All right. I will walk quietly away from that. But I mean, if you've seen my picture, I basically look like some sort of weird mom Disney character. I am not threatening at all, and they seem to take that as a reason to just start doing things, and it's invasive a lot of the time, and I get very traumatized by being in hospitals. I've had way too much bad stuff go down when I'm in a hospital that
Understandable.
Yeah, losing control like that and not knowing what they're doing, or even if they know what they're doing. I trust the nurses. I don't get afraid around the nurses. I feel like they're capable. They've got this. It is the 26-year-old doctor who came in and looked at my shoulder where my brachius, my upper arm, was over by my boob. And I could fit my entire hand into my socket, and just looked at me and went, does that usually happen?
Well, it's like me when I go to the doctor. Whenever I go to any of my doctors, the receptionist goes, how are you doing today? I'm like, well, if I was doing good, would I be here? That's my favorite thing, because it always throws them off their game, because they're used to everybody going, yeah, I'm fine. And I just if I was doing good, would I be here? And it always throws them off, and they're like, oh, that's a good point, isn't it?
When doctors, principals, teachers or school counselors, can you tell what my ear was like, they always ask, how are you? I'm like, well, it's just going to depend on what you have to say next, right? Like, I refuse to commit to an answer until I've heard why you're calling me. And yes, I do say that.
Oh, I have no doubt.
Yeah, well. Are we lost on where we are on the...
No, I have not lost my place.
You're so good.
I try.
I am.
So, when you get diagnosed, or, well, actually, when you start having all these problems, you start looking into yourself, and like I said earlier, stay away from researching your symptoms on the internet, because you will just make yourself miserable and convince yourself you're dying. But there are things you can do. You can join chat rooms, Facebook groups, Reddit forums, where you can talk to people who have similar symptoms. If you do know what you have, or you suspect what you have, you can talk to people who do have it and say, hey, I'm having these. Does it sound like what you've gone through? And it won't be a diagnosis, but it might get you ideas of, like, narrow things down, people who've had experience. Don't like, oh, they say, try this, try that. Don't do that.
Talk to your doctor first and don't sue us.
Yes. But I'm saying that's a good place to go for, like, hey, I think I might have this. What's that look like? And you can talk to someone who actually has had that, lived with it, and they can tell you some of the things that life is like when you have that situation. Sort of like listening to our podcast when you hear people talk about their life as like after diagnosis.
Yeah. Oh, huge props to my Ehlers-Danlos community online.
Which is what made me think of this one.
Yeah. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, am I dying or is it Ehlers-Danlos? Am I dying or is it POTS? Am I dying or is it mast cell? Like, it's amazing. But I do want to, like, put a little caveat in there is that you're going to read the worst of the worst in there too. Yeah. So you need to go into this with an understanding of that might not be your future. As you've heard, we've absolutely had people with the same diagnosis, and we've interviewed different people, and I do that on purpose because just because you have the same disorder does not mean that's your story.
Yeah.
And it does not mean that you're going to end up in the same place. Ehlers-Danlos goes all the way from, my joints feel sore and I'm super flexible in yoga class to I complete massive disability. Like, there's a range. So I think it's important when you're looking at these sites not to go, oh my God, they've had this disorder for this long, so this is what my future is going to look like.
Right. It's more about looking for information rather than just some site on the internet talking to actual people is what I was trying to get at with this.
And you did it very well.
Once you actually get a diagnosis, I know what's wrong, but now what? Then things that the fears that crop up are, what does this look like going forward? 5 years, 10 years? What are my new limitations? Is there a cure? Like, I said, I'm sorry,
what's that? What was that word you just said?
Cure. It was.
You mean people go to the doctor and they get a diagnosis and then a way to make it go away?
The Cure was a punk band.
Oh, I know the Cure. How old do you think I am? Of course I know the Cure.
That's the Cure I was talking about. Sorry.
No, I was just trying to figure out, like, this mystical idea that there is a diagnosis, a protocol, and it goes away. Like, that
it happens for some people.
No.
It happens for some people.
No,
I've heard.
Let's go around the fire and tell a story.
But, so, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm still not sure if I've got early onset Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. We won't know for years until if I develop the twitches and stuff like that, then, because there's no test for it either. So we have to keep watching it.
And uncertainty sucks.
I
mean, like, getting bad diagnoses sucked just as much, but there's this, like, gray area of this holding pattern. And if you've heard some of our other podcasts with people who are trying to get a diagnosis, one of the big things is lack of community. If what we just talked about with these groups, they're because we have diagnoses and we can go into those groups and access that help. If you don't, you're missing communities and that hold you up and help you walk through the forest. Like, there's some breadcrumbs when you have a diagnosis.
And you can join some of those communities when you think you might have a diagnosis.
Respectfully, kindly.
Respectfully. Yeah. That's the problem, is that, you got to go in there respectfully, because
the internet is an entertaining place.
That's a better way of phrasing what I was thinking.
Be forewarned, children.
And, again, once you've got your diagnosis, can I get anything for it? Is there any medication? Is there, if it's pain, is there pain medication, or are you going to be labeled into that opioid crisis?
Or are you going to have to go through a whole bunch of ridiculously painful procedures to prove you're a good pain patient?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like we need to have, like, you know how there's the 10 stages of grief? I feel like there needs to be the 10 stages of getting a chronic illness diagnosis, because there is like this elation I felt like when I got my diagnosis. I sat in the parking lot and I cried. I was so grateful to know that there was actually a reason this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that elation lasted just long enough to realize that the word cure is completely removed from anything. And that
you've gone from, hey, this is something that's wrong with me that I might be able to get fixed, to, okay, well, I now know what it is, but there's no fix. So there's this high and then drop off.
Yeah, and then, like, I swear to you, I've never been diagnosed manic, but I do have this side of myself where I am super, we can get this done. I will power through anything and everything. And then deep dark. But, like, the first thing I do is jump to, like, well, I'll still be able to run my photography business with Eller Stainless. I've been doing it so far. The diagnosis doesn't change anything. Well, of course, that didn't change anything. It was just that I had been putting so much stress on my body. And any of you kind people who I used to photograph who listen to the podcast, you saw me stumble or fall down or all sorts of things. And it just got to a point where it was like, that just can't happen. But I had this idea that I could power through.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am stronger than my illness. And that's such the myth that I think a lot of us get told through the media of the inspiration chronic illness stories.
Right. There's the rare person who, they get the chronic illness, but they stay at a high level, high functioning level. And so they're like, oh, well, I did this. And you talk to them and they're like, well, I just went out and did this. I went out and did this. I'm like, yes, but it's pretty obvious from talking to you that you were at like the highest level of that and you never got any worse.
Yeah, and like we said, there's a whole bunch of different levels of this, but like there's just this aspect of like if we were just more inspiring, we could push through any of this, and I hate that mythology because I think we put it, at least I put it on myself.
Yes,
and
me too.
Yeah, that's
I tend to overdo it too.
One. Yeah, and I have smaller people, younger people that need but mine are still. Yeah, and I have pets who are very demanding. And,
yes.
Yeah, and I do put more on my plate because I feel like if I fail with a lot on my plate, we're going back to fear, and we're going to like the real deep dark fear here is that if I put a lot on my plate and I fail, it's not because I was sick, it was because I put a whole bunch of stuff on I did too much. And if I had a whole bunch to do, at least I did some of it as opposed to like, and this is not healthy. Please do not think this is healthy.
I'm scared because you're describing me too, and I'm realizing it now that you're saying it. Like, that's the exact same thing I do.
Oh, yeah. See, this was actually about him. I was just trying to, like, intervention. This isn't even a podcast. We're really just doing an intervention. You cannot flip me off on air and think people are hearing
I was going to say, for those who can't see what I'm doing, I'm flipping her off right now.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even notice. You pretty much, I feel like you almost just need a splint just to hold that finger up to me. Like,
yeah. So
anyway, I feel like we need to have like some sort of like stages of not grief, but stages of like diagnosis afterwards, because there's nothing that helps you through the sudden like realization of this is your life.
Maybe we need to take that on as a project to figure out what the stages of.
If we do it, it's going to be like the hyperbole and a half pain scale, where it's just fucking hilarious. Like,
probably.
Yeah, it has to be. But I will give that a try after I finish the novel, the children's story I'm almost done with, the other podcast I'm working on. And the YA novel, that. Yeah, I'll get to that one.
So the whole thing you were teasing about earlier about traveling. I'm leaving Saturday to go away for 10 days because I'm doing a writing retreat to do the plotting for my next book. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so we became friends for a reason.
What was that?
Seriously, feel the love, all the love. Oh my God, someone just back me up on how mean he is to me.
Nope, not mean. I just keep you on your toes, which you should be a ballerina. You should be good at.
Oh my God. So I'll go into something that isn't here, because I have a younger child, and then I have I have an almost adult. It hurts, but for any of you who are also parents or caretakers, I have to say one of the biggest fears I had was how my kids would take it. If they would, and this is actually a big issue I'm having with my daughter, who's in the house, and if she hears this, we've already discussed this, but she loves helping. She's a wonderful, wonderful kid, and I'm so afraid that she will take on, like, I'm going to be mom's caretaker. And like, no, you've got a big, exciting life for you, and I am not your responsibility. I love your empathy. I really love when you get me water when I need it and I can't stand up, but I need you to understand this is not, like, that's a fear. And
I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Oh God, it hurts. And my disease is, disorder, I guess it's not a disease, is genetic. And so someday we're going to have a whole, there's a panel planned about genetic questions and big life decisions with chronic illness. But it turned out I just didn't have that diagnosis till after both my kids were born. But I used a wheelchair, and my kids would use it as an extra chair in the house. Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you the cold fear that went through my body every time they would sit down and play with it or pop wheelies with it. First off, I'm jealous. I still haven't figured out the wheelie thing yet. But it just made me so frightened to see them in that chair. Like, this is not the last thing I'd want for them. There's other things that would frighten me more. GOP congressman. But
crazy man in the White House.
Yeah, that stuff. If they did that stuff, that would probably frighten me more. But I certainly don't want them to have the levels of pain and illness I've had. I mean, that frightens me. So that's always been a big, like, icicle in my stomach.
Yeah, I hear you there.
Yeah. All right. So getting lighter now.
No, we're not.
That's my little coping mechanism. Too dark, run.
And the last topic we had, and I know we have some other things to talk about around this, but the last topic I had down was, what do you mean I have something else now? Because most people that have an invisible illness end up having more than one. Like, you have your Ehlers-Danlos, you have your POTS, and then mast cell activation.
And fibro. And scoliosis.
Okay. See? And I have my dairy allergy, my IBS, and my knee and feet problems.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of like, you think it's just like the thing that you get, but it's actually dominoes.
and it is. It really is, because you feel like one thing happens, and sometimes they can lead into each other. Not, sometimes directly, some not directly. Because, like, I got my foot problems because I had work boots that were too tight, and we had to get order from a certain source. They were British, and they weren't. I always had wide feet, and the British wide was not American wide, and so my feet ended up.
I mean, come on, American wide is a whole nother metric system.
In shoes. But it meant that I ended up damaging my feet permanently and changed the morphology of my feet such that I was constantly crushing a nerve in my foot.
Yeah.
And that's how I started having that. Then, because I had trouble walking all the time, because I was really active before that. I had a job where I was on my feet 10 hours a day. And I started being not able to walk as much. And suddenly I started putting on weight, which caused some of my other problems. And, sometimes those things snowball like that. And you can't, once you get going down that road, it's really hard.
Or medication that puts on weight, and then that causes a whole bunch of other stuff. Or surgeries, or like, I have POTS. So any of you, my fellow fall down people, you can pass out from standing. You can pass out from walking too much. You can just basically pass out. Let's just be fair. We are the first ones out in the zombie apocalypse. And that deconditioning, because you're scared to stand or exercise, that makes the POTS so much worse. Like, I got to a functional level because I got pedals to put beside my bed.
Right.
And then it started with 5 minutes, and then I'd pass out and I'd wake up and I'd do 5 more. Like, I fought this hard for like 6 months, and now I'm at a good conditioning level where I don't pass out very often, but it was like a whole bunch of factors. It was not just that. And do not do this and think that this is how you do it. Just talk to your doctor about it. But deconditioning, it becomes a huge issue for heart issues and lung issues and circulation. Like with my dad, who's mostly bedbound, one of the biggest issues we have is trying to keep his circulation going because he developed diabetes from his medications. Yep. So it's constantly the snake eating its tail.
Yep. It is, and it's terrifying because you never know what's next.
That notification was what's next.
Yes.
I had to tease him about leaving that on.
Well, it's a husband trying to get hold of me, and I usually have it on silent, but I was expecting a phone call earlier, and I forgot to turn it back to silent.
Ah. Okay, so you have what is this new thing, undo I tell my doctor, because that was what I just went through with the mast cell stuff was, oh my God, am I going to have to go through all these tests and all this not being believed again with all these different specialists?
Yeah. And, and that, like we were talking about earlier, there's that that list.
Mhm.
Because, if you go saying, I now have this new problem, are you looking for drugs? Because now you get this new problem you need medication for. It's sad when you're on a first name basis with your pharmacist.
Yeah, and when you start getting their wedding invitations and like,
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yes, absolutely. But you also, a lot of people have had this issue. I'm trying to like talk around what I'm trying to say, and it's probably going very badly. But oh, sweetheart.
Oh God.
You might just be stressed. What else is going on in your life? Oh, you're not sleeping enough. Well, are you kidding me? Of course I'm not sleeping. Not happening. Or there's a lot of patronizing.
Yes.
And
even I get that.
Yeah. And he looks like a wall. I swear they're going to draw like a little Disney like character of us someday. It's going to be really hilarious. Yes. I'll be the squirrel.
No.
But that's always something that I'm afraid of, to bring a new thing up to the doctor is like, are they going to revoke the first like diagnosis that I fought so hard to get?
Oh, actually it's this. So we're going to take this other diagnosis away.
Yeah. And that's what I had happen with the fibromyalgia. Was like, that's what this is. You can just relax now. It's not going to kill you, but it's not going to be okay. It's going to be bad, but you can manage it. And that's what I worked under for like 20 years. Like that was the diagnosis I had. And I still have it. It wasn't taken away, but the stuff I was actually going through that I was going to the doctor for was something totally different.
Yeah.
Or what painful test will they decide I need to try to have, or what invasive test, which I will take the painful one over the invasive any day.
So for this phantom smells thing, I had to have an MRI on my brain. But it meant laying on a table with a cage over my face. Because I was strapped into this thing where I could not move. So that cage was literally an inch from my nose. Then go into an MRI machine for an hour. Then they pulled me out long enough to give me a needle stick and inject something into me, a dye, and then stick me back in for another 30 minutes. And they couldn't get the needle stick to work. I have easy to find veins.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at him from like across the table and I can see his veins.
3 tries. First one, they got it in, and as soon as they started injecting the dye, it slipped through the vein, and they injected the dye into my arm, which made my hand feel like it was on fire for the next 3 hours. Second time, they couldn't find it. The third time, they finally found it, and we got going. But
so we're going to have to do like a panel of like hospital horror show stories. Like, I think we just all need to get our trauma out there and just, I can't pay for therapy, so I'll do that. No, but like in America, I read this little thing on Pinterest because if you ever want to find me, that's where I'm at. That poverty charges interest in America.
Yes.
And that's the truest thing I ever heard. Like, you ignore that lump in your breast for like a minute, the next year you're dealing with stage 3. You ignore that cavity, you're dealing with a root canal. I feel like fear also works that same way as poverty, in that like I was so scared of an invasive test that I had symptoms of cancer. I don't have cancer at all, but I did have the symptoms, and I avoided it for 8 months. That could have been that was ridiculous. That was so stupid. But I'm so traumatized going to the gynecologist. Like I will avoid it for any reason at all. And the fear keeps you from actually going and getting these tests that you need to get to be preventative or even to catch things early.
Right. Or, you're afraid to go because you're afraid you will find out something and you're worried that's what it's going to cost.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, like, I can't tell you how many of my friends have had breast cancer in the last 5 years, and that's expensive. Like, There's no way around it. Like, in the United States, we go bankrupt being sick. That's not a fear headline you're reading. That is absolutely our reality here, is you get sick. Yeah, and some people, there's this one GOP person on the social media site I was on, and I'm trying a new, nicer, kinder Monica. I'm working on it. But they were saying all of this is BS because every hospital has to treat anyone who walks in. No. Yes, legally, but they don't have to write down a diagnosis, which means that they don't have to treat. And they kick people out, or they still bill you. Yeah. You still end up with that debt. So let's just be clear, everyone.
Yeah, they have to treat you. You just may, be in debt for the rest of your life.
No, but I mean, like, they can also write down, and they have done this, write down wrong diagnoses, like heartburn instead of tumor, so that they can get people out. Yes, there's actually documentation on this. there are a lot of things that are done. And hey, if you're listening to this and you know these stories, please feel free to like link.
Let us know.
But link news stories. Please don't.
Yes.
You can absolutely say your anecdotes if it's yours. Please feel free. But if you're going to actually like go to the mat and argue, we have a whole bunch of links. Please do the same. Please link your stories to credible news sources, because I feel like if we're going to like really fight this administration, guess where we are on the political spectrum. If we're going to fight, I feel like we don't fight with emotion. We fight with actual facts. And yeah, that's my own little...
Yeah.
So going with the theme of like our podcast, my cat is now meowing at the door. Like this is what happens every single time a pet will...
Yes.
I guess it's just like how it goes when you have this many animals. Like small farm here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
If it's not the chickens, it's the cats. If it's not the cats, it's the dogs. If it's not the dogs, it's the kids.
Yeah.
Or the husband.
That's Meryl. Or the husband. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, then we kind of take a turn into the really dark.
Oh, because I wasn't like just skipping down the dark garden path. Yes, let's go to suicide. That sounds fun. Really quick before we do that, let's just at the top of this page, go to our show notes. We will have a hotline.
Yes.
If you are having any of these feelings, we will have the hotline for phone, or if you have anxiety, we will have the text hotline. Please use these. You are cared for. We care.
Yes.
You're worth it. And I promise you a permanent solution is permanent.
Yes.
Everything else can change. So please use those hotlines. Okay. That was my PSA.
I'm going to kind of tag right on that. I have personally attempted suicide twice. And both times I thought there was nothing left to live for. And yet my life now is, for all my aches and pains, my life is rough. But my life is more incredible than I ever imagined it could be at the times that I was so dark.
Yeah. I think a lot of us have those experiences. And
so I definitely say don't give up, because there is a brighter day there.
Yeah, I've certainly been there myself many times, and I am so grateful that I'm clumsy and I read directions badly. No, I've certainly been there. I actually don't know many people who haven't attempted. So if you are looking around you thinking you're the only person who has gone through this, I promise you, and no shame. There is no shame in this. And
that's why we talked about the communities too, because that's a good way to find people to talk to when you need to just talk.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But no shame. I hope you never feel shame about what you've been brave enough to endure so far.
Yeah. And, so what I'd written down here is it's too much for one person to bear, thoughts of suicide, losing relationships because they can't bear the ever-increasing hardship of being around you or taking care of you.
Yeah, I had that happen. I had someone I was ready to marry who just said, I cannot do this. I'm in my 20s. I cannot be there and do this with you. And that was... I'm still lucky my husband and I were best friends for 3 years before we even dated. Right. So he saw all of this. Like
there was no surprise.
Mental, physical. He saw me at my worst and best. Like he was there for all of it. So I was really lucky that when we decided to get married, there was no, well, I'm sure there's been surprises. I'm sure he will absolutely argue that I have never been boring.
Well, that's for sure.
Not all. But he did have a very clear idea of what we were looking at for a future together. But that's really hard when you suddenly get sick and you're like the suddenness. Like I've been sick since I was 8. Like just suddenly being sick is terrifying.
Yeah.
Suddenly being sick in a permanent relationship or a new relationship, that's a whole nother level. I would like to say I empathize with, but I don't understand.
And we've talked about it before about, do you disclose on the first date, second date that you have this chronic illness? We've talked about that. And that's another fear in and of itself.
Yeah, this is why my husband and I have the no divorce, no death. I am never dating again, ever, 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 no.
And then the last two things that I had here about the kind of the darkest things on the list. Mm-hmm. We talked about it briefly earlier about, the isolation. You get lonely and isolated because you can't go out. You can't guarantee you can go out. Even you want to make plans, but you end up finding out that, oh, well, I got sick today. I can't go out.
How many times have I canceled on you at like 10 minutes before I'm supposed to be somewhere?
I know. And I've had to do it too, so I understand. It's both frustrating as the person who's being canceled on, and frustrating as a person who has to cancel because you really wanted to do something. You really wanted to get out of the house. It wasn't like, you know, you just didn't want to go. It's like, oh, I really want to go, but I'm miserable.
Yeah. Or
And,
dealing with the jealousy of when people come back from all of these things and
oh,
tell
FOMO.
you about
Back
what a
to FOMO.
great time they had. Or,
Fear of missing
boy,
out.
you've got to go travel through Europe because it's so wonderful. And I mean, I will agree, it is wonderful, and I did love traveling through Europe, but it's...
Well, even recently, you went to Filoli with David?
Yes!
But, you know, that's a big park. I don't think I could, I don't think my feet and my knee would handle it.
I was a walking opioid epidemic for the day, and I had my canes.
And David's like, oh, we should go. And I'm like, I'm not sure I could handle that.
Well, the great news about places like that is you don't have to do the full walk. Yeah. You can do, like, the Rose Garden is just right there, and Filoli is decent at their ADA. They're pretty good. You can get around in a wheelchair for some of it.
Okay. But anyway,
what I will say is this: David is Kyros' husband. One of his husbands. I love both of them so much, and it shows anyone who knows me how much I care about them and how much I trust them, because I trusted to get in a car with David, who, I mean, I don't spend as much time with as I spend with you, but he's such a gentle, kind person that I was like, you know what, even if I had to go to the hospital, I don't feel like I would be embarrassed with him. I feel like I'd be okay. Like, and that I don't trust people like that, like, ever. And I trusted him like that. I was like, oh, this is the person I would actually make plans with, because I don't feel like I'd be scared to say I can't. Or I know we plan. Yeah. I know, like, or the, like, I know we plan to go to, like, okay, so I had tickets to Hamilton. Like, I had tickets, and I was so scared to go because I don't know if I want to tell the whole story. I'll tell the part story. I was really scared to go to where the Orpheum is in a wheelchair at 9 o'clock at night and have to park far away for so many reasons. First off, I'm like, these are really expensive tickets, and we might get to San Francisco and have to turn back around. Anyone who's been to the Orpheum at 9 o'clock at night knows that it's not the safest place to be.
Not a good neighborhood, no.
I do have anxiety there, and I have PTSD there, so I have real issues going there anyway during the daytime. It's just one of these things where it's just like, I was so scared to go to this amazing experience I wanted so badly, and I didn't even have to pay for the tickets. Someone had given them to us, and I felt so bad. I just called them up. I'm like, I'm too scared to go. I'm too scared I won't even be able to go. Please give them to someone you think would actually be able to definitely show up for this. Like, I didn't want to take that away from someone else.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, but it's just, it's all these things that, like, stack up. Like, it's not like you can just grab your wallet, your meds, and walk out the door a lot of the times. There's so many things to consider, and consider, like, how judgy people will be. How well do you know this person?
Yeah.
Or could you even get stuck somewhere?
Oh, yeah. It happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking from, like, the days before Uber and Lyft, where you could just, like, go,
oh, yeah,
help, because I couldn't do anything before Uber and Lyft. I'm sorry, I won't give Uber any voice. Before there was a Lyft, I couldn't do any of this stuff. I couldn't, like, decide to maybe even go by myself somewhere, because I knew if I got trapped, I could go to Lyft, and no, they aren't sponsoring us. I just have huge issues with how Uber treated women, and a lot of their business practices. Oh, smirk.
I didn't say anything.
But things like that did open things up, which was back to our technology talk of, like, if you're against technology, I'm guessing you're probably not very sick, because all the things that I'm afraid of, technology does help answer quite a bit of it.
Yeah, that's one thing that technology's been really good at, is solving problems that affect a lot of people, and chronic illness is affecting more and more people all the time.
Yeah, and then we also have that baby boomer generation that is aging into the ultimate chronic illness, getting older.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are just waiting for those self-driving cars.
I'd love it.
That'd be great. I'm in.
And the last thing on my list is, we're running down the clock here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
The big enchilada, the fear of death. You know, is this thing I have gonna end up killing me? Is it something that's, you know, like with what I've been, I mean, a lot of, like I said, you can tell I wrote this while I was scared about having a brain tumor and or Parkinson's, because as much as the brain tumor scared me, the Parkinson's actually scares me more, because it's something that's degenerative, that you slowly disappear. You yourself, just like Alzheimer's, there are things where the essential you disappears. And that scares the hell out of me.
I don't think anything is more frightening to me than the idea of Well, actually, the scariest one for me is the idea of being a shell. Like, the idea of like being aware but not being able to, because I'm a control freak, people. That is terrifying to me. But like, the fear of death, that's been a hard one. Because I used to think I knew exactly what I thought. And I was very certain I knew what I thought about everything because I was so much smarter when I was 20.
Exactly.
I was so certain when I was a teenager and 20.
16 to about 27, you think you know everything.
Oh my God.
Then at 27, it's like someone hits you in the face with a pie and goes, guess what? You didn't know shit.
Oh, no. I was a great mom before I had children. I knew exactly how I was going to do everything. Everyone's children who were misbehaving, they were only misbehaving because I wasn't their mother and I didn't have them in hand. Oh my God. I'm so sorry to everyone who knew me before I turned 40 and I was a judgmental pain in the butt. My apologies. It's a growing experience, this thing called life. Yeah.
And nobody gets out of it alive.
No. And having a teenager, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Wow, I was really wrong. I deeply apologize. Yeah, that's become my lexicon in marriage and raising kids.
I thought I knew. I don't. I'm sorry.
No clue. So yeah, fear of death. Yeah. Well, Jesus, like it's the fear of death and the fear of decline.
Yeah.
And we're ending on that note. Really, this is what we're putting people
to. I'm sorry. We can come up with something.
You are not allowed to rate that. I didn't go all the way to the end. I'm like, wow. All right, exit stage left.
Well, this one is one about fear, so I mean, it makes sense.
So we're going to leave you terrified and sad. All right, so you'll definitely have to tune in next week where we talk about some other disorder that you. We're doing great here. This is fantastic.
But also, in all seriousness, it is a fear we all have. But, you know, honestly, having dealt with, when my appendix ruptured, I thought for sure I was going to die. Because my appendix ruptured and they weren't believing me. So I've already kind of dealt with the fear of death on one occasion already like that. And you got to just live every day, one day at a time. Because you can't get stuck thinking, oh, what's going to happen 5 days, 10 days, even, 5 years, because it's going to happen when it's going to happen. You could have a chronic illness and think that you're going to die, in 2 years from your chronic illness and then turn around and get hit by a car tomorrow.
Yay. Again, he's really helping, isn't he? I mean, I'm going to recommend he become a therapist. In all seriousness, Seneca, there's a book on Stoicism that, nice eyebrow raise there. I really do like Tim Ferriss, and he recommended the book. He talks very openly about his own suicide attempts and his own depression, and I'm very grateful he did because he has some incredible ideas of how to work with us and how to deal with this. But that book was a really good book to read for someone who's afraid of death. It doesn't deal specifically with that, but it does answer a lot of questions in a not moralistic standpoint, which I always appreciate. Are we done? Okay, before we go, since we depressed the hell out of you.
We did get a lot of laughs in, though. Yeah,
we did. Okay, so go watch something funny and lovely. Go watch kittens on YouTube or like a hamster eating a tiny burrito. I promise you it makes it better. But please, if you are listening to this and you have been depressed and sad, reach out. I know it's hard. I know that's stupid advice because when you're depressed, it's impossible to reach out. But if you can pull anything that you miracle off that you can to make that phone call, we will have all the numbers up at the top.
And we'll throw maybe a video link at the bottom, something silly or something that
I will put a YouTube thing in the bottom, and
so that you can hear something or see something funny to take away from some of this heavy stuff we've been talking about this last hour.
Absolutely. And in the comments, if you have things that you've done that really did help you, please put it in the comments. We always appreciate that. When you're tweeting, go ahead and tweet out with something that makes you smile. Tweet out with a gift. Tweet out with the meme. And not a horrible meme. Be nice. Don't be nice. Be funny and witty.
Well, not just be nice. Be kind.
Oh, be gentle.
And be a badass.
Be a fucking badass. Tune in next week, hit subscribe, and say really embarrassingly nice things about us on iTunes.
See you next week.